Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about Reliht. Reliht is a brand new web and mobile app, one without distractions of social scrolling and chat. If you're a content creator, coach, mentor, writer, author, teacher, or leader, Reliht gives you a dedicated space to capture what God is speaking, organize your content, and share it with those you lead. Ready to create and share God notes with your followers? As a special launch welcome, sign up is free through September 1st, 2026. Visit reliht.com to get started today. That's spelled Reliht, no G. Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kristen Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Dr. Stuart Jones to the show. I'm so excited to have him here today. We've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit before we got started, and he is just like the word that I'm hearing is a delight. So before we get into
Thank
your
you.
story, would you just share a little bit about yourself?
I will. Kristen, thanks so much. You're so gracious to have me. And you're right. You and I made a really nice connection.
Yeah.
Some people and their spirits just do that. They just connect, right?
Yes. Yes. I love it.
As I was sharing with Kristen a little bit earlier, I'm 3 years into retirement now. I'm a retired executive in higher education. I served as a vice president at several different universities, a couple universities in Indiana. I was a VP at a wonderful university in Kentucky and in Virginia and in Massachusetts. It's like I just kept running around the country, trying to find my perfect spot. But before I got into higher ed, and I did that for 30 years, I was a pastor. I was a minister. And I stayed true to my calling. I felt a calling to go into ministry. And therefore, after my bachelor's degree, I picked up my master's in divinity and theology. And I served in ministry within churches for 10 years. And then that ministry expanded and went to some Christian universities after that. And now I've come full circle, Kristen. I'm full circle. In retirement, I'm back to doing interim pastoral work for churches that simply need a pastor in an interim period, part-time, to kind of hold the ship and steer it correctly, I pray, until they find their permanent pastor. So I just finished an interim church, and I'm being called to another interim church, being interviewed with them next week. And that's been fun. But I've stayed really busy in retirement because that's just kind of how I'm wired. And one of the things that God absolutely inspired me to do and kind of gnawed away at me for many years until I got it done was writing this book. I'm also an author, and I've written my first, I hate to this sounds like bragging, but it's now an award-winning book. I've won quite a few awards, and it's only been out for 8 months. So I'm blessed that it's getting some wonderful recognition, including it's now been admitted to the Library of Congress. And that's just really mind-blowing because that means my book's there forever until the library's no longer there. And,
Right. Yeah.
the rapture and then all that happens.
All the things. Yeah.
But anyway,
Love it.
but I had to write the inspirational story of my brother, Stephen. He was the first of our family born. He was born with intellectual and developmental disabilities in a time where there were no services and resources and help. There was no special education. And the book is really about his amazing and remarkable life that, again, my parents were told so many doom and gloom things that Stephen proved them wrong, and my parents proved them wrong. And faith was a big component of our lives growing up, and for Stephen's. But I've written the book called For the Love of Stephen because I titled it that because as I looked back on our journey together as a family, we had to do a lot to help Stephen, defend him, advocate for him, speak for him. And everything we did was because we loved Stephen. So For the Love of Stephen became the title. And my subtitle became The Story of a Boy Who Was Never Broken. Because Stephen was labeled broken early on. Back in the 50s, they would label children mentally retarded. They used medical terms such as imbecile or moron was a medical term. And Stephen was given all of those labels. And my parents, who had Stephen at the tender age, both of them 18 years old, had to get married, first child right out of marriage. This was a tough shock to their system as an 18-year-old couple. And they kind of adopted some doom and gloom along the way because of all the prognoses they were given. Stephen may never read, he may never talk, he may never walk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Steve did all of those things because my parents
Yeah.
eventually adopted. They unlocked hope. They
Oh,
found hope unlocked, and they truly took on an attitude of, we're not going to listen anymore to people who say, here's what Stephen can't do. My father said, he got to the point where he said, I want to know, what can Stephen do? And that made all the difference in Stephen's life. And they gave him a beautiful life
oh,
until, and spoiler alert, but the book's very upfront about this, until he was tragically killed at the age of 52. And that was about 20 years ago. But in retirement, I had to write his story. My parents, who are still alive, age 91, they helped me write the book. My other brother, Scott, and sister, Susan, I'm the youngest of the family, they helped me write the book. I gathered their stories, and I didn't know many of them, but I gathered the information. I did the research, and I wrote what I think is really a powerful, moving story. At least that's what readers are telling me in the reviews, is that it moved them and changed the way they will forever think about those with disabilities and the fact that they deserve respect and dignity, and mostly they deserve to be seen as children of God, people
yes.
whom God has created as part of his masterful handiwork.
Mm.
And I've been preaching that message because too often, Kristen, and I'll be quiet here and let you ask a
Oh, you're
question.
good. You're good.
I'm still just so bothered that those in the disability community, whether it's Asperger's, autism, whatever the disability, they're still segregated and they're still kind of shunned from society, and they're not provided the resources and services. Medicaid keeps getting pulled from them. And I've joined many disability advocacy groups, and I'm an advocate now and speaking out on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. They are not second-class citizens. They are fully human. They are capable of more than we know or give them credit for. And by golly, they deserve to be seen as fully human. And so we
Yeah.
fight that good fight along the way. God's put that on my heart as well.
Well, like I said before we got started, you didn't retire, you refired, and
I
you are
did. I refired.
fired. I love it.
I do get
Yeah,
fired
I
up
mean,
about this.
I can feel it. You know, even just when you say the word disability, I love flipping the script. Like,
Hmm.
what could be another word that, I mean, because again,
Yeah,
it's a label, like medical
it
systems,
is.
they all
It
have
is.
labels, and I've
Yeah.
heard of people who have been given labels, and it squishes them. It
Yeah.
pulls life out of people with some of these labels that were given. I can't believe some of these labels that were given back in the 50s, you know,
Yeah, I
it's
addressed that in the book. It's one in
awful.
my early chapters, the labels. And I say that labels belong on jars, not human beings, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you're right, disability is a common term. And many people, I like this term as well. They say, no, differently abled. These people are differently abled. And as
Yeah.
my friend, here I'm going to name drop now,
Yeah.
my friend Temple Grandin, Dr.
Oh,
Temple
yes.
Grandin, who
Yes.
wrote the foreword for my
Yes.
book, I
Yeah.
love her mantra, which is different, not less. Just
Say that
different.
again. Say it again for the people in the back.
Different, not less. And I
Yeah.
like to say
Good.
Stephen was different, not broken, as others thought he was. And we
Yeah.
often treat those individuals as though they're different and broken and that they're less than, and they are not. And I
Yeah.
learned that growing up with Stephen. That was the blessing of my life.
Yeah. Temple Grandin, remind me, I watched her movie.
Yeah, on
What is the
HBO.
name of the movie?
It was just called Temple.
Temple. Okay.
Yeah, on
So
HBO.
good. So
Yeah. And Kristen, I don't know if you've seen the documentary on her life. There's a documentary more recent, about a few years
good.
ago, came out. It's called An Open Door, because
Oh,
that's part of her philosophy too. She feels like her calling and vocation in life is to open doors for people who are closing doors on them. And she did that for me. I mean, I didn't even know Temple when I sent her my manuscript. I took a wild chance.
yeah.
And I said, Temple, I appreciate your philosophy of opening doors. I'd
Yeah.
like to see if you'd be interested in writing the foreword to my book so I can open some doors and be a disability disability advocate. So she's a woman of few words sometimes, but when she gets to talking and she's at a convention or speaking, man, she's just so articulate, so highly intelligent. But she types back, she says, "Send me the manuscript." I sent her the manuscript and I waited and
Send
I
me the
waited.
manuscript.
Yeah, and
Stop.
I was waiting for rejection, Kristen. I'll be honest. I had no faith.
Really?
Shame on
Oh.
me. I was waiting for the rejection.
But you took a step of faith, so that
I
was also
did.
great.
I did. And as my wife said, she said, "Stuart, if you don't send it, the answer is going to be no.
Exactly. Why
Send
not
it."
ask? Yeah.
Yeah, I asked, and she sent back a 2 weeks later. She said, quote, "Stuart, this is a beautiful story and so inspirational. I would be happy to do the forward for your book." And I felt like I'd won the lottery. I just jumping up and
Great.
down like a crazy man, singing
Yeah.
praises to God and thanking my new friend. And then Temple says, this is the crazy part. She says, "Hey, call me sometime. Here's my phone number." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So
Wow.
I didn't have the guts to do it right away. I'm such a
Really?
chicken. No, so about a week later, I dialed the number. My heart was racing. I called her and she picked up. And I said, "Temple, hey, this is Stuart Jones. You just agreed to write, the forward to my book For the Love of Stephen." She says, "Yes." She said, "I really enjoyed reading that." She said, "That's going to be a powerful resource for parents to give them hope and inspiration." And I said, "You think so?" She said, "Absolutely." So we had a pleasant
Oh,
conversation.
my goodness.
She's such a
Wow.
gracious lady, such a big name celebrity,
Mhm.
doesn't even close to have a mentality of a celebrity.
Yeah,
When
because
she says to somebody piddly like me, "Call me," I'm like, wow, she's really down to earth.
yes. And isn't it amazing to like find people like that that maybe have had some like notoriety and people know who they are and yet they are willing to talk to anybody, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think
She
that's
she
really
wants to
amazing.
be a friend with everybody. She
Yeah.
is an autistic woman, but really an autistic savant in that everybody knows she's quite the genius in animal sciences and still
Mhm.
teaches
Yeah.
at the University of Colorado State. She's just a
She
brilliant
really
woman.
does. How old is she now?
She's in her 70s.
Okay.
And
Wow.
my gosh, she makes me feel like I'm slow because she's always on the go, literally from
She's
one
refired.
to another conference. She is so refined. I don't know how she keeps up with her own schedule. And in between, talking to people like me.
Yeah.
I actually caught her on the tarmac while she was sitting on an airplane before it took off to go to her next conference. She's like,
Really?
"I'm trying to get through some calls before the plane takes off." And she said, "I saw you ringing in." I said, "Yeah." So that's just how incredible she is.
Oh, wow, I love that. Well, I love that for you too.
Thank
And I
you.
love like her, premise is an open door, right?
Hmm.
I'll just share a little bit. I
Please.
remember I left a corporate position about 5 years ago, and it was at a health insurance company in a
Yeah.
corporate setting, and
Yeah.
they had no handicap doors to the
Oh
bathroom.
dear.
To push the button where it would open to
Oh
the
wow.
to even get into the security floor.
Not
I
ADA
I
compliant, were
tried
they?
to fight them and
Good
they
for
were just
you.
like, "Nope, we can't do that." And I'm
Oh.
just like,
They're kind of
"I'm so
mandated by federal law, Kristen, to do that.
and I'm like, "This is a health care company."
Yeah. Oh my, I
So,
know.
and
It's
I
crazy.
just don't and I yeah, so tell us more. I would love to hear. So, Stephen, first child, were you the second then or
I was
what?
the last child. There was
Okay.
Stephen, and then again, I don't think I'm ruining the surprises of the book. But the second child that was born to my folks, his name was Johnny. So here's my parents, 18. Now they're about 19 years old. They know that something's wrong with Stephen. They don't know quite what yet. He wasn't diagnosed. Then they had a second child. Dad gets drafted into the army, drags mom and Stephen down to North Carolina to crappy army barracks, for housing for married couples.
Yeah.
Johnny catches pneumonia when he's 15 months old and dies. So that was a lot for a 19-year-old couple to be handling. First child has special needs and they suspect it. Second child dies tragically. Third child was my sister, then my brother Scott. And then, as I like to say to my siblings, I was last because they reached perfection and decided to stop. You know what?
But
They don't buy that at all, but I like to
okay.
say it.
And I recognized a pattern here. You guys all have S names.
We
Was there
do.
significance to that?
No, mom said it
No.
was clearly accidental until I came along. This sounds crazy, but they said, all of our kids we've named with S's. This last guy, we better give him an S name. And I got Stuart. And I Stuart. Nobody names their kids Stuart anymore. What a name.
Have you grown to love your name though?
No,
No?
I need therapy for this. I should have been like Sam or
I was going to
something
ask you,
really
like, what would you
cool.
name yourself?
I don't know, but not Stuart.
Okay, well, in your retirement years, maybe you could take on a pseudonym of some sort.
I need to find at age 65, I got to find
Something.
my new identity,
You know what I'm
right?
saying? Yeah.
Well, I took
Uh,
such a teasing as a kid because of the book Stuart Little. So
right.
literally, here we are in first and second grade, and our teacher's reading Stuart Little. And what do you think my name became for many years to come? Stuart
I
Little.
can only
And it's,
imagine. And
I
it,
guess it's sort of true. I'm only 5'7", so all right, whatever.
and it's, you are a powerhouse. So we're going with that. So I'd love to hear. So when did you start writing the book?
Yeah, right after I retired, I stopped making excuses and I really felt it was time. So I sat down and started I'm sorry for this term. Some authors use it a lot. I don't know if it's that great of a term, but I started to do the word vomit, where
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
just started writing my memories of Stephen. Talk about
Mhm.
a rough draft. And it
Yeah.
took me about a year
Are
to
you
do this.
literally like writing or retyping it?
Typing it, yeah, on my laptop. And I
Okay.
realized I had to capture as much about Stephen's life as I could. And I knew I didn't know all about Stephen's life. I just didn't. Stephen and
Mhm.
I were 8 years apart. Uh,
Okay.
and so I interviewed my parents, hours of interviewing my parents. And their minds at that time, oh my gosh, sharp as a tack. They could
Yeah.
remember all stories, incidents, dates, names, when they went to court, when they put a couple people in prison who abused Stephen. They just remembered it all and they recounted it all. And for me, it was fun because they're weaving these stories. I'm typing as fast as I can. Then I would run home and flesh those stories out more. And the same thing with my brother Scott and sister Susan. And I learned so much. This is where I became really inspired and where hope really got unlocked for me with this book. I didn't know a lot about my brother
Well,
Stephen. I learned so much
really?
about the ups and downs, the trials. My parents are very private people. They're post World War II generation. That generation doesn't share openly. Like my father likes to make fun of today's generation. He's like, "Why are people putting pictures of their breakfast on Facebook?" I said, "Dad, because
Yeah.
they share everything."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Well,
That's
you didn't share stuff. You just, you were very private. You kept things private. But yeah,
Mhm.
they shared all of their stories knowing it was going to go into a book. And I just
Mhm.
began to really admire my parents'
Yeah.
courage. When
Mhm.
they were told by the family doctor, Stephen is a special needs child, they called him retarded. And my grandmother and the doctor himself told my parents, you've got two options, really, Keith and Phyllis. You can put him in a home, an institution. That's where they put most kids with mental challenges and problems. Or you can just let him live at home and he can grow up with you and just do the best you can with him. That was their two options. Well, my parents quickly, they said not for 1 minute did they consider an institution. They
Yeah.
loved Stephen and they knew they had challenges ahead. And because he was a preemie, he was put
Mhm.
in an incubator for 9 weeks to survive. That
Right.
just about caused him permanent blindness. So the poor kid wore the thickest glasses imaginable on his face. And he was also born with just some other problematic issues. Ichthyosis vulgaris is a terrible skin condition that poor
Mhm.
Stephen had. It's skin that's so dry. It's scaly and it peels constantly, like you've got a sunburn that's peeling that will never go away. So Stephen always had dry, flaky, peeling skin. Bless his heart. Webbed
Mhm.
toes, bad eyes, um, and just very short in stature.
Mhm.
But again, one of the most beautiful things about his childhood was when my father said, him and mom took a position of doom and gloom until my Aunt Betty came along. I love this
Okay.
story. Aunt Betty wasn't going to listen to doctors who said, Stephen, probably if he walks, that's going to be a miracle. Not only did he walk, he ran. He was a fast runner. But my Aunt Betty said, well, I'm going to teach him to pedal his tricycle. He's 3 years old at this point. Mom and dad said, good luck. My mom and dad said Aunt Betty worked with him every day. Every day she took him out there in the driveway and she kept trying to get him to move his legs to pedal.
Yeah.
He finally did. So she screams at mom and dad, literally. They come running out. They see Steve pedaling a tricycle. Mom cries. Dad's
Oh,
cheering like he had just won the Tour de France.
great.
And
Yeah.
Betty's jumping up and down. My father said it was in that moment hope unlocked for them. That's when they decided no more are we listening to what Stephen can't do. What can he do? And they took on a whole new persona as parents. And
Yeah.
they put Steve, this is why I love my parents' courage. This was radical in their day because you
Yeah.
didn't see special needs kids out in the public all the time, they were hidden away.
Really?
My
Like,
parents put Steve
like,
out front and center everywhere in public.
oh,
And they let him join the Boy Scouts for neurotypical kids. These kids are looking at Steve like, we're going to have him in Boy Scouts? Yes, you are. And they had Stephen join
love
4-H.
it. Oh
And
my
he
gosh.
joined the church and he joined the choir. And we found out he could not sing. Whew, he made a joyful noise, Kristen, but he didn't sing on key. So dad took him out of choir and made him into an
Okay.
usher for the church to collect the offering and pass out bulletins. But
Yeah.
Steve gained so much confidence because my parents believed in him and we believed in him. And so he really did live a happy, full life. He was
Yeah.
such a gentle, beautiful soul. He really was. And he
Mhm.
taught me and my brother and sister so much about unconditional Christian love and seeing everybody and the dignity of everybody and not judging anybody. That's what Stephen was. You were a friend to him instantly. No judgment. Just he wanted to be your friend. He wanted to be included. He just wanted to belong. And we did the best we could to make that happen. And it made
Yeah.
all the difference in his life.
So, was he in school too?
Yeah, school was a challenge. My parents started him in kindergarten with neurotypical kids like you and me, right? He was neurodivergent. So he
Mhm.
failed kindergarten. And Mrs. Kendall said to my parents, he needs to repeat kindergarten. So he repeated a second year of kindergarten. He didn't pass, really. Mrs. Kendall said he needs a third year of kindergarten. My parents said, no, no more kindergarten. And as my father said, God threw them a wonderful lifeline. In that very moment, they saw an article in the newspaper. We grew up in Lafayette, Indiana. Actually, at that time,
Okay.
we were living in a nearby small town. But in Lafayette, Purdue University was doing
Mm.
cutting edge evaluations, assessment, and research on those with
Mm.
intellectual disabilities. So they said, we have to move to Lafayette. There was no school yet, just Purdue University. They then did discover a small group of parents with children like Stephen who were tired of being told, no, your child is never going to learn. We can't take him in school. They started a
Mm.
school for intellectually disabled children. They themselves, as parents, until they could finally hire a teacher. And Stephen finally started getting an education, learning his alphabet and his numbers. Eventually, in middle school, special education became a
Yeah.
reality in Lafayette when they hired their first special education teacher at a school. And then Steve got more of a formal education. And long story short, because it's all in the book, my parents fought with many parents to get these children mainstreamed into public school. Stephen
Yeah.
was the first special ed class to be brought into a neurotypical school. They were in a separate classroom, but Stephen also had the chance to be with other children in other classes. And he had graduated. My parents will tell
Mm.
you their proudest moment, two moments, pedaling a bicycle, and number two, graduating with a high school diploma. Stephen did it.
Gosh,
He
amazing.
did it. And no one
And
said he could, except my parents.
Ever hear something on this show that stirs something deep, like a nudge from God that there's more? That's stirring. It's not random. I'm Kristen Kurtz, host of Hope Unlocked and the founder of New Wings Coaching, and I'm inviting you into a 45-minute unlocking session, a sacred space to press in, hear what heaven is saying, and activate your next bold step. If you're a trailblazer or kingdom voice ready to break free from doubt and live fully alive, this is for you. Book now at newwingscoaching.net/hopeunlocked for special listener pricing. You were born to live uncaged and unapologetically bold. Now back to the show. I think, like, have you ever considered creating a movie?
Somebody asked me that. I don't know. It'd be lovely if somebody picked up the rights to this movie because Stephen's story is fairly typical. There's millions of children who walked this same path and
Mhm.
with parents who weren't sure what to do. And no disrespect intended, but parents who did hide children away or put them in an institution, they just didn't know what to do. My parents took a very brave journey and said, "This is our child made by
Yeah.
God for a purpose. We love him. You will love him too, because here he
Yeah.
is."
And I think of, a couple who's 18,
hmm Yeah.
right? My son who just drove by that I was just waving at.
Yeah. Hey.
I can't imagine, like, at that age. So their parents, I think you said one of the grandmothers was kind of
Yeah. My
more
father's
one
mother
that was
said,
like,
put him in an institution. Yeah.
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 And how about your mother's mother?
Oh, no, they didn't feel that
How
way at
about your
all.
mother's mother?
Yeah, she no, she didn't feel that way at
Okay.
all. She wanted
Okay.
them to keep Stephen and to raise him. And they never thought twice about it, they
Okay.
said.
Yeah.
So, Stephen just lived a beautiful life. And I
Okay.
just like the fact that he he beat the odds for sure. And I know we've heard 1,000 stories like that, but Steve did it too. And he kind of proved the naysayers
Mhm.
wrong because they also told my parents he'll never be able to be a productive member of society and hold a job. But he did. Right out of high school, he got a job as a
Oh.
custodian at a hospital, a local hospital there in town. And Steve couldn't drive a car. He
Mhm.
just wasn't capable of handling that. So he rode his bike
Okay.
everywhere. And Kristen, for
You rode
33
his bike.
years, he
The bike.
rode his
That's
bike
so
to work
significant.
in the
The
rain.
bike. You guys think about this. Like
Yeah.
the 3-year-old to ride a bike to this
hmm
point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Like the
sure.
mode
Thanks
of
to your mother.
transportation to
Yeah.
continue to like defy the odds.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was that like for him working at the hospital?
He was so proud of that job and he loved talking about it. He loved talking about the different assignments he had, whether it was mopping up the floor of an operating room, and he liked trying to freak us out with the gory details. Or, and where he
Okay.
really ended up was in the laundry department, always doing the laundry of the bed sheets and the pillows and the pillow sheets and all of those things. And he was very proud of that job, and he did it. In fact, he did it so well, his supervisor was with Steve practically all of those 33 years. And his supervisor, as he hired new housekeeping staff, Steve would many times be the one training them, showing them around and training them. Yeah.
How amazing. I'm just like, what was like the most, I know you said you didn't know a lot about Stephen. What was the most, I don't know, the word that comes to mind, kind of like mind-blowing, shocking, just inspirational thing that you learned about Stephen through, talking to your parents, talking to your brother and sister. What would be like the most inspirational piece of Stephen that you didn't know that you learned in writing this book?
Um, Yeah, how quickly he was to forgive. Because while the book is truly a
Mm.
beautiful story, it's very heartwarming, and readers have said it makes them laugh and cry. But readers have also said it makes them mad because I have two chapters in there, Kristen, two chapters, both called Vultures That Circle. And in Stephen's adult life, when we couldn't keep an eye on him 24/7, He lived semi-independently in a tiny little apartment near the hospital where he worked. People took advantage of Steve. You know, people can be evil. And when people see someone vulnerable like Stephen, who just doesn't know better, who can't always discern someone as a con artist or taking advantage of them, they did. There's some unpleasant stories to read that readers have said to me really infuriated them, who stole from Stephen, a guy who beat Stephen up just about once a week to take his money from him after he went to the bank. And when Steve didn't want to give it, he beat him up, literally. And so and my parents had to take some people to court, and two people ended up in jail for their crimes against Stephen. They fought for Stephen in every way you can imagine.
Mhm.
But what was amazing to
Mhm.
me is how Stephen would forgive, because I knew about some of the abuse, and I confronted one individual, confronted him
Mhm.
about the abuse.
Yeah.
But you know, no matter how much he hurt Stephen or somebody hurt him, Steve would always just take him back because he didn't know malice. Steve didn't know hatred. He would be like, I would say, Stephen, don't trust him anymore. And Stephen would say to me, he's my friend, but he's my friend. And I'm like, Stephen, he's really not. He just didn't have the ability to
Yeah.
understand that. So Stephen would just forgive
Mhm.
people who hurt him, and he would take them back, including
Mhm.
one remarkable story of his first wife. Stephen did get married to a woman,
Yeah.
but she only took advantage of him after 3 years of marriage. And even when he had to divorce her, and we helped him through that process, she had no place
Mhm.
to live for a while. And so she came knocking on Steve's door, and he took her back in for a while. His ability to love unconditionally, forgive quickly, hold no malice. Man,
Mhm.
that is Christ-like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I
Absolutely.
saw that in Stephen, I wanted to be a better human being too. I just wanted to be able to be that way, kind, gentle, but I have the ability to discern too. And poor Steve
Yeah.
did not. Yeah.
Yes.
If I
So,
can share one more
yeah,
powerful
absolutely.
a very powerful God moment, I'll make this one quick. It's in my book, chapter 8. There's a chapter called God Don't Make No Junk.
Oh,
And I
yes.
was going through
Yeah.
those awkward pre-adolescent years, when you're 12 and 13 and your
Yeah.
hormones are raging and pimples are popping up and your voice is squeaky and you're nerdy and weird and
Mhm.
awkward and everything's awkward. I confess in the book my faults too. I wasn't the perfect brother. I was not. I confess
Mhm.
that, that was those moments where I wasn't always prepared to explain Stephen to people because everybody would ask, what's wrong with your brother? And it was just an awkward question, and I never had a good answer.
Yeah.
Never. And sometimes I was embarrassed. And sometimes,
Mhm.
yes, even felt ashamed because I
Yeah.
was just a gangly teenager who didn't know better. One
Mhm.
Sunday morning, Reverend Bruce Morgan at our church preached the sermon, God Don't Make No Junk, because the
Yeah.
church had a beautiful ministry at that time for people like Stephen and others. That's why my parents wanted to go to that church, because they
Mhm.
had many intellectually disabled children and adults attending. It was a beautiful ministry that they had. And some of the church people were getting a little bit leery of it because it was growing. And there was more and more special needs people in worship. Sometimes, you can't predict the noises they will make or the outbursts they will have. And people were starting to
Oh.
freak out. And poor Reverend Morgan was starting to catch some flack from people, and he'd had enough of it. So with
Yeah.
Psalm 139, verse 14, I will praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I know that full well. He took to the pulpit and he gave people a very righteous, kind dressing down about how all people, including the ones in our ministry of this church, are created beautifully, fearfully, purposefully by God. And we better see him that way. And that was a life-changing moment for me because I sat there and heard this, and I
Mhm.
never again felt embarrassed or ashamed. I actually felt proud. And I swear to you, from that day on, I was proud to introduce Stephen. And when people said, "What's wrong with your brother?" I'd be like, "Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. This is Stephen." He's my brother, and that's what I would say. Nothing's wrong. So I was
So
proud of
that
him.
message completely shifted everything for you.
Oh, it did. And
That's
it shifted things for the church too, Kristen.
yeah.
Reverend Morgan would tell me that years later. Reverend Morgan said people kind of got off their high horses and their country club mentality, and they recognized that if Jesus was here in this church, he'd be doing the same thing.
You'd
He'd
be
be
so
ministering.
happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and I was just never embarrassed again. It changed my thinking about my brother from that day forward. So, God don't make no junk. It's a quote from
Doesn't.
an old jazz musician and singer. She said that about herself. She says, I know I'm special. God don't make no junk. And that's
I
true.
love
That's
it.
true
I
of
remember
all of
hearing
us.
that before. So do you feel like how do you so at that moment like everything changed for you and the congregation changed, but just even going through your own life, how has Stephen impacted you just in the way of who God created you to be even? I hear you speaking about him now and like how has his impact marked you in your life?
Yeah, the book after it was published had an impact that I didn't expect. It didn't. Kristen, I thought I was kind of writing a book that I knew my family would love and friends of our family would love, and I thought that'd be the end of it. I had no idea the impact and the way the book would fall into the hands of hundreds of people, the invitations I would get to come and share Stephen's story at libraries and at bookstores and at book festivals and in churches. Suddenly, I found myself in a new ministry. You said no longer retired, but refired. And suddenly I
Or
found
refired, yeah.
yeah, God calling me back around to, hey, this is your new ministry. You need to speak for these individuals and help Christians, especially remember who God is and how God makes all of his creation with purpose and intent and as a masterpiece. That's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. We are his handiwork. And some of the Greek translations talks about masterpiece. Stephen was a masterpiece in my mind. And I'm just trying to
Yeah.
share that story to give parents who have children like Stephen
Yeah.
hope and siblings like me hope. And no longer being embarrassed, but I want to inspire people and I want to inspire everyone, whether they know a disabled person or not, to see these people as, yes, they're different, but they're not less.
Right, exactly.
That's my
And
new mission.
I mean, we're all different.
Yeah, I know, right? Isn't that great?
I always tell people like put your and I go cross-eyed when I do this, but like put your finger in front of your face. Nobody
Hmm.
has the same fingerprint. So
Yeah, isn't that
just
remarkable?
that's a reminder. Like it's right here. Put it in front of you. You're
Yeah,
different. And
yeah,
unfortunately, the world tries to kind of mold us into different, you know,
they
labels.
do.
Again, speaking back of labels, like label, here's your group, here's this group.
Hmm.
Do you fit in any? I think we need to really be reminded we are all different,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. And one of the
So
awards, oh, I'm
now
sorry,
that
go ahead.
you're, oh, go ahead. I think my internet's being a little wonky right now. I'll let you
Just a
go.
little bit, yeah, sorry. But
Yeah,
one of the
that's okay.
awards for the book that I just won that I'm now, oh my gosh, super blessed and proud of was I won the an award for the book being included among five award winners called the Impact Book Awards, Positive Impact Book Awards. It's a national award. I was one of five that won for diversity, equity, and inclusion because in the book I do go farther than talking about the disabled community. I talk about seeing every human being, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter religion. It doesn't matter nationality. It doesn't matter culture. God created a beautiful, colorful tapestry in this world, and he did it on purpose. And we need to love that and
Great.
respect that because it comes from God.
Yeah, so good. Well, you are absolutely making an impact, and
Oh, thank you.
I'm giving you an award today.
Oh, well, thank,
The
I'll
Hope
take it.
Unlocked Award. I've never given a Hope Unlocked Award, but you're getting a Hope Unlocked Award today. So, yeah,
Kristen, thank you.
yeah,
Seriously, that means a lot. Thank
it's
you.
beautiful. Like I think of, watching Temple, that movie. There's another movie that I watched recently, maybe in the last few years, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's about a little boy who wanted to play baseball, and he like had the crutches on it, or the, do you
Hmm.
know what movie I'm talking about?
I
But
don't.
the dad didn't want him to play baseball, and
Oh, wow. Okay.
he totally defied all. I'll have to look it up and put it in the show notes.
And he
But
did end up playing
and
baseball.
then
Good
there
for
was
him.
he did, yeah, and there were so many people that were just like, you can't do this, and I am such a proponent. Like, if somebody tells you you can't do something, prove them wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prove
Yeah.
them wrong. So, in this time of being refired, has there been any thoughts, or have you had anybody come and say, like, you can't do this? Have you had any opposition come
No,
for
I
you at all?
haven't. I haven't. What I have had is I've traveled. I call it my little own mini book tour. I didn't know I was going to be on a little mini book tour, but it's been fun. What has blessed me is hearing people's stories when they come to see me at a book fair and I'm they're buying a book and I'm signing their book. I love listening to their story because I don't want to just sit there and talk about
Yeah.
Stephen all the time. It's fun, but then they open up. And I hope that hope's being unlocked for them through Stephen's story. I know that it will be. But then I get to listen to their story about their sibling or their child or their grandchild or their neighbor or their cousin or whoever it is. And I've heard some beautiful stories. Beautiful stories. And people pick up the book. And
Yeah.
again, you don't have to have a person with a disability in your life to read this story. You do not. You just have to believe in humankind
Yeah.
and in God's purposeful intent for all of us, all of us.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. So as you're saying that, you're capturing stories. Have you ever thought about having a podcast yourself?
No, no, I haven't. I actually haven't. I'm having too much
Okay.
fun talking to people like you.
Okay. 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 Just a little thing to put on the
Thank
little
you.
shelf of
Well,
possibilities. I don't know.
you're planting a seed. It might get
This
watered. It
is
might
this has
grow.
been, I love planting seeds.
I know you
Seeds are
do.
the,
That's what's.
well, I would love for you to share. I hope my internet, I feel like it's getting a little wonky, so I would love for you to share is the best way for people to get a hold of you. And now that you're refired, what would you love to be doing? Like, are you looking for more speaking engagements? Are you looking for churches to speak at? If somebody's listening, like, how could somebody come alongside you on this journey if that's what you're looking for?
I am looking for more opportunities to share this story about disability dignity. I absolutely am. And my fee is perfect. It's $0. I charge nothing. I was invited a while back to a
Okay.
university and I spoke to a large class of future special education teachers. I don't charge a fee. I would love to be invited to your book
Okay.
club. I met with a book club in Michigan of 8 people, and that was so much fun to sit around and talk about the book. They read it
Yeah.
and we talked about it and being on podcasts or invited to bookstores. I just was invited to a library about 50 miles away, and I'm going to go meet with that group of their book club who's reading the book right now. I'm just looking for those opportunities to bring about awareness, disability dignity, and
Yeah.
disability inclusion awareness. So you can reach me real easy. Go to my website because there's a contact form to reach me. My website's www, of course, dot author Stuart Jones.com. And Stuart is Stuart, as we talked about my name earlier.
Okay.
Author Stuart
Yeah.
Jones, all one word.com. Please come and visit me and let's chat. Let's talk.
Oh, yes. Well, you are such a joy. I'm like,
Oh,
movie,
thanks.
podcasts, there's a lot here. I
Well,
just
you're a
see a lot
beautiful
for you.
coach, and you're giving me all these great coaching
I
ideas.
know.
So thank you for
I'm like,
that.
just pray about it. So, as I mentioned before, I do this for the one. So if you could just get into mind, like the one who's listening in today, we don't know where they are. They may need just a super dose of hope. What other like words of wisdom or encouragement would you like to just briefly give this person today?
I think the first thing yeah, thanks for asking. The thing that popped into my head was something my mother said as I was interviewing her for the book. She said, when she was talking about hearing all the doom and gloom constantly from even the Purdue Research Group, just all the doom and gloom, what he'll never be. She said, and I would pass this on to your listeners, you can
Mhm.
listen to the advice and the diagnosis or any prognosis. You don't have to subscribe to it. She
Mm.
said, your father and I, Stuart, listened to some of it and it sounded right. Others of it, we let it go right out one in one ear and out the other. We knew it wasn't
Mm.
who our boy was, and we wouldn't going to believe it. So use your power of discernment. And even though you're hearing advice from so many others, you got to discern the good advice from the advice that you don't believe is true and you know in your heart is not right. So keep hope alive, as Barack Obama would always say. But by doing that, you can also you can have hope unlocked in your life if you just ask
Yeah.
God to help you discern the good advice from the advice you don't need.
So good. You are such a joy. Thank you so
Okay,
much for
thanks.
being a brave voice who's setting so many
Thank
free.
you.
I am going to close with our Hope Unlocked anchoring verse. It's may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And that's Romans 15:13. Thank you so
Amen.
much again. I will be back with another episode next week. Thanks, listeners. Bye.